Today's daf, Be'ez Hashem, is Masechta Avodah Zarah, Daf Nun Zayin, number 57. So we're going to start from Daf Nun Vav, Amid Beis, and we're going to start from four lines from the bottom of Daf Nun Vav, Amid Beis. Okay, it's on the screen here. Very simple stories over here. We know that if a goy touches Jewish wine, it could become Usr. Perhaps even it's Usr Bahanoah. It's Usr to drink, and maybe even Usr Bahanoah. Okay? Even if he did not pour the wine over an Avodah Zarah. So what does it mean touching the wine? So the Gemara tells us a story. Ahu Uvda, there was this story. The Hava ben Ardoi that was in Ardoi. The Dashi Yisrael V'goy Lahu Chamra. So if you imagine Lucy, remember that scene where they're crushing the grapes together and they're stomping on the grapes. So let's assume that the wine belonged, the grapes belong to a Jew, and the Jew and the Goy are both. Um, uh, just wait, Alan. Hi, Alan. We just began. So on Daf Nun Vav Mebes that there was a story in Ardoi that a Jew and a Goy were stomping on grapes and stomping on the grapes, and they're producing this juice, which we'll call wine. So now they didn't know if if um, if now what is the guy doing? The guy's hand is tied. We're going to learn that he's not touching the juice with his hands. He's only using his feet to touch the grapes, crush the grapes, and touch the juices. So by touching the juice with his feet, does that prohibit the wine? So they went to Shmuel to ask this question. Shmuel plus the rigla. Before Shmuel responded with an answer, he waited 3 Yom Tovim. Because during Yom Tiv, the smartest people would show up to Shmuel's court, and Shmuel would discuss the shaila with them because he didn't want a paskin right away. But he had to wait not only just 1 Yom Tiv, even 3 Yom Tivs. So my Tama, where was Shmuel, what direction was Shmuel heading? To Aser or to Mater? Do you want to say he wanted to Aser? We go to Amid Aleph. The Mishkach Natana, the Aser, Krab Yanasan. If he found a Tana who would Aser the wine like Rab Nasan. Rab Nasan was an individual opinion. It seemed that Rab Nasan held that if a goy touches the wine is Aser Bahanoah. But Shmuel did not want to paskin directly like Rabbi Nasan. He wanted to find somebody else who supports Rabbi Nasan's opinion. So then he would have Asrina Afila Bahana. He would have made the whole wine Aser Bahana because the goy is touching the wine. Now, where's this Rabbi Nasan? The Tanya we learned in the Brisa, Medadoi Bein Biyad Bein Beregel. If a goy has there's a Jew has a let's say a garbage pail full of wine, right? And a guy comes in, lifts his like the old Catskill uh, uh, um, kitchens, where the guy comes in, sticks his whole hand into the to stir the juice. So he was measuring the how much wine is there in there, bein biyad, whether he stuck his hand into the vat, or bein beregel, or he took his foot into the vat. So you can sell the wine. You can't drink it anymore because the guy was slushing it around, but it's mutter bahana. So the Chachamim hold it's definitely mutter bahana. Rab Nosson says it depends what he used. Biyad, if he was sticking his hand with his hand, also you're not allowed to even have hana from that juice, from that wine. But regel, if he just stuck his foot into the pail, then it's mutter because he's only touching the thing with his foot. So it's mutter bahana. So it couldn't be that Rabbi Shmuel was trying to asa these juices because what's the guy doing? He's crushing the grapes. He's standing in this place with the grapes with the guy, and the guy's crushing the grapes with his feet, and he's not touching it with his hands. So nobody asers that bahana. Because Eimer the Amar Rab Nasan, when the Rab Nasan says that if a goy touches the juice and the wine, it's aser bahana, you can't benefit from it, you have to throw it out. Biyad, if he touched it with his hand. Berega mi Omar, but if he did it with his feet, would Rabbi Nosson say it's Asr Bahana? Rabbi Nosson says that if the guy uses his feet, it's Mutter Bahana. So what was the big thing what Rabbi Shmuel was looking for? Ella, just the opposite. He was trying to say that in this case, it would be mutter even to drink. The Mishkachna Tana Desharik Rab Shimon. If we would find a Tana that paskin like Rab Shimon holds that if a guy, somehow fell into, a pool of wine, the wine is mutter to drink. So the ishrei afilu b'shtia, then he would have mattered even to drinking, because since the guy that's crushing the grape with his feet obviously has no intention to do nisach, to pour it for avodah zarah. So therefore, it should technically be permitted to even drink such wine. But Rab Shmuel did not want to matter the wine until he found another Tana that would support Rab Shimon. And that's why he waited such a long time till he issued a psak. Now the Gemara tells us the story, again, with this idea of touching the wine. Touching the wine. Now, if a guy obviously takes the wine, pours it over his avodah zarah, or pours it with the intention of serving an avodah zarah, so then, of course, it's asabana. Chazal made a gzera that if a guy just touches the wine, and not only that, we're going to learn that even if the guy touches the wine through another object, the wine could be asr also. So now says the Gemara like this: Hahu uvda dahava bebiram. There was this story that was in Biram. Biram is a place. There was this guy, dahava kosalik bedikla. He was climbing a palm tree. Va'isa lulav bahade. And he's bringing down from the palm tree a lulav. Obviously, the guy doesn't need a lulav. He brought a branch. So bahadi de chonachas, as he's coming down the palm tree, he lost his footing. And naga b'roisha de lulav b'chamra shloi b'kavana. With the head, the top of the lulav, he accidentally touched wine of a Jew, with not intentional. He was just coming down, and there was a Jewish guy with wine, with a barrel of wine open, and somehow the guy's lulav, with the guy holding on to the lulav, touched that wine. So what's the din with the wine? So Share Rav lezabuni legoyim. Rav says, look, you can't drink that wine. It was touched by a guy, but it's mutter bahano. It's mutter bahano. You can sell that wine now to goyim, but a Jew can't drink it. So apparently Rav holds it's somewhat mutter. It's somewhat mutter to benefit, but you can't drink. Amrle Rav Kahana Ravasi Rav. So Rav Kahana Ravasi said to Rav, "V'homar hu da Amar." But didn't you, Rav, say that even tinik ben yoime hu oise yayin ezech, even a baby of a goy, which obviously has no intention to, do nisach yayin, even a baby of a goy that touches wine, it becomes like yayin ezech, and presumably, Rav meant to say that even if a baby goy touches wine, it's usher to drink and usher bahana. It becomes like regal yayin esek. So how can Rav matter to hana this wine that was accidentally touched by the lulav of a guy? Answers the Gemara, Amalahu. Rav said, it's not. This is what I meant. Eimed Amra. No. When did I say if a baby touches wine? I said it's yayin esek b'shtia, that you can't drink it. Bahana mi amre. There are no benefit, did I say? So what you learn from here is Rav's opinion is that any time a guy touches wine unintentionally, it is also to drink for a Jew, but the Jew can sell it. He can sell it for a guy. So if he touches it intentionally, then it becomes asr bahana. But if he touches it unintentionally, so then it's like a baby, or like the story with the lulav, so then it becomes also to drink and mutter bahano. So says the Gemara, Gufo we learned previously. Rav said, Tinik ben yoime oise yayin esach. A baby that touches wine, a goyish, a baby that touches wine, makes yayin esach. Eisve Rav Shimi barav chia l'Rav. Rav Shimi asked a Rav, there's a brisa that says, Halakeach avodah min goyim. If someone buys a slave, a goyish slave, you go over to your goyish friend and you buy his slave. And this slave knows he's being sold to a Jew. So Shemalu, he got a bris milah, v'loy tavlu, but didn't go to the mikveh. So You would call him a half a Jew because in order to be a Jew, you have to have the bris milah and go to the mikvah. But really, he should be like a goy because he's not a Jew yet. So let's call him the goy. The story is like this: Bnei Hashvachas, a Jew had a shivcha, a goyish shivcha, never converted to Judaism, and that shivcha had a baby, Shemalu, and that baby had that, let's call it, and that kid had a bris milah, like Tavlu didn't go to the mikveh. So again, even though it was brought up in a Jewish family, the Eved is not a Jew yet because it only had bris milah, not tvila. So because it's a goy, the Brisa says rukin umidrasim b'shik tamei, the spit that comes out of the mouth and whatever they trample on, even in the street, is tamei. Normally you say suffix, anything in the street should be tahar, but if you know they trampled on something or their spit, it's from them, then it's tamei. It's tamei because any spit from a goy is considered tamei. Chazal made it that we don't have anything to do with goyim, so their spit, whatever they trample on, become like as if a zav touched it, and now it's tamei. So that keeps us away from goyim. So these people have a din like a regular goy. V'amrila, another says tar. They're not like goyim. They're tar because a regular goy they made like a zav. But this is like a half a goy, because he's already on his way to becoming a Jew, so he remains tar. But here's the point: Yenam, if they touch wine, gedolim, if they're adult, then they make it into yayin esach, and it's asa bahana. Kitanim, and here's the point: if they're small, ein on yasin nesach, they don't make it yayin esach at all, and you're allowed to drink it. So we see ve'elehen gedolim, what makes a goy a gadol, ve'elehen ketanim, what makes a goy a cotton. Gedolim yoidim mitiv avodah zarah m'shamshel. A regular adult guy knows all about avodah zarah and how to serve the avodah zarah and all the equipment for the avodah zarah. Ketanim is somebody einin yoidim mitiv avodah zarah m'shamshel. He has no idea how to serve avodah zarah and what the way of serving the avodah, what avodah zarah is, and the different avodah and how to serve it. But ketanamius, we have a partial quotation in this brisa that these goyim, that gedolim en, only a gadol that touches wine makes it asur bahana. Ketanim loy, but if they're cotton, and certainly a baby child of a goy will not make the wine yayin esach. So how could Rav say tinik ben yayin esach? If a baby of a goy touches wine, it makes it yayin esach. This brisa seems to disagree with that. And says the Gemara, Tirgama b'nei shvachos, that yes, goyim, that a baby goy that touches wine will make it yayin esach. But if this baby goy it grew up in a Jewish household, he's the son of a shivcha that worked in a Jewish household. So, and he already had his milah, not the tefillah. So then Rav would say that this cotton goy would not make yayin nesach. Says the Gemara of v'chein kamar. Didn't Rav say that v'chein kamar means that all goyim, no matter what, gedolim will make. So even a regular guy would seem to say any guy would a katan will not make yayin esach because that's what the brisa juxtaposes. Any type of guy, even a guy an eved that came from a goyish household, and says the Gemara ruka midrasim. That's only by the spit and the stampling. Then they're similar. In other words, as long as you're not a Jew, even if you took the milah, doesn't matter who your owner was, whether it was a goy or whether a Jew, the eved, the spit, and the medras is tamei. But there is a difference. But when it comes to touching yayin esach, so it depends. If you grew up in a goyish household, then if you're a cotton, you touch yayin esach, it will become yayin esach. But if you're a cotton but coming from a Jewish household, then if you touch yayin esach, even Rav would agree that it wouldn't become yayin esach. That would be good according to Man the Tame. If you're juxtaposing of a chain, that would be good if you learn that the roikon of a bnei shvachos would be tame. Not only is the spit of a regular goy that comes from a goyish household, is the spit is tame. But even if it comes up with a Jewish household, the spit is tame. But there was another opinion. One opinion says that the spits are tar, whether the Eved grew up in a Goyish household or a Jewish household. My ikalamema. So then the V'chein is comparing a total comparison regarding if they touch wine. And therefore, the way you should understand this brisa is that a gadol goy that touches wine makes it yayin esach, and any katan goy that touches wine will not make yayin esach, not like Rav. Answers the Gemara, no. Hakamashmalam. The brisa is teaching you v'chein avodim dumya de b'nei shvachos. That's a goyish evet that had the milah, who comes from, and not the tvila, is similar to if it grew up in a Jewish household. Ma b'nei shvachas, just like if you grew up in a Jewish household, a goy. Malu v'loy tavla, if he had the mila, not tvila, if he touches wine, who the yaisi yayin esach, it will make yayin esach, if he's a gadol. Malu v'tavlu loy. But if he had mila and tvila, then he's a Jew. Then he wouldn't make yayin esach. Af avodim came. So also by avodim, that as once they have the mikvah, if they have the mila and they went to the mikvah, then they will not make the wine tameh, but wine yayin esach. Now, once they become a Jew, what's the chiddush? Because Shmuel said something fascinating. The Amar of Nachman Amar Shmuel, halokech avodim min agoyim. A guy buys a 15-year-old eved from a goy. Even if you give it a bris milah and tvila, you got to keep him away from your wine cave. Why? Because oisin yayin esach. Even though they're Jewish, they can make yayin esach until they forget and lose the wording of Avodah Zarah from their mouths, and that usually takes 12 months. So, because we're afraid that since they were forced into converting into Jewish, they may pour the wine for yayin esach. So if they touch wine, it becomes yayin esach. Kamash malam deloy. That this brisa disagrees with Shmuel. That as soon as they get the bris milah and the tvila, no matter what guy, even if it grew up in a goyish household, if it has the milah and the tvila, it will not aser the wine. It would not aser the wine. And not like Shmuel, who says that if you a goy, even a goy, an eved goy that has the milah and tvila, you have to wait 12 months. Now the Gemara brings that up for the discussion. Gufa, we learned before. Amar Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel. Halakeach avodim in a goy. A guy buys a slave from a goy. Afal pi shemalav v'tavlu, even though it had the bris milah and the tvila, oisin yayin esach. It would still, if it touches your wine, it makes yayin esach. Until Avodah Zarah is lost from their mouth. V'kama, how much time do you have to wait? Until 12 months. 12 months later, then he's a full-fledged Jew, and if he touches wine, it does not become yayin esach. Esrei Rabba Rav Nachman. So Rabba asked this, to Rav Nachman and Shmuel this question. This brisa seems to disagree with Shmuel. Brisa says, same brisa, you buy a slave that had just the bris milah, not the tvila. Doesn't matter who the owner was, a Jew or a goy. Rukam midrasim b'shik. The brisa says, we go to Amid Beis, Zayin Amid Beis. Rukam b'shik tame. Their spit is always tame. V'amri lo tahar. Others say it's tahar because they're half a Jew already, even though they're not fully Jewish. Their spit is not tummy. But yainon, their wine, depends. Gedolim, if they're an adult, oisin yayin esach. If they touch it, it becomes yayin esach. Ketanim, if they're not an adult, ein oisin yayin esach, then they're not yayin esach. Eluhen gedolim elum ketanim. What's considered an adult by a goy and a cotton by a goy? Obviously, it's not bar mitzvah. It's gedolim means he understands the knowledge of Avodah Zarah and how to serve Avodah Zarah. Ketanim is she'ein oyedim b'tiv Avodah Zarah mishamshav. A ketanim is somebody who has no understanding of Avodah Zarah. Now, what did Shmuel say? That even if you give a bris milah and the guy went to the mikveh, if it was an eved, you bought a slave, you bring him into your house, you give him a bris milah and a tvila, you got to keep him away from your wine, Shmuel said, because if he touches your wine, it will make yayin nesach. But this brisa says, only if they had the bris milah, not the tvila, in would it make yayin nesach. Mala v'tavla, but if they have both, the mila and the tvila, loy, then it wouldn't make yayin nesach. So this is against what Shmuel just said. Answers the Gemara, Tirgama b'nei shvachos. This is only by b'nei shvachos. If the Eved was bought from a Jewish owner, then he was already around a Jewish family. So then right away, if he has the Mila and the Tvila, Shmuel would agree that he does not make it Yayin Nesach. But if he came from, you're buying the Eved off a guy, then even if you give it a Mila and Tvila, then Shmuel says you still have to wait 12 months. Says the Gemara, Havachen Ketari, but the Raisa seems to compare Bnei Shvachos to a regular Evet that you buy from a guy. The Brisa seems to say that they're both the same. All the halachas that apply by Bnei Shvachos applies by any other Evet you buy, even if the owner was a guy. And says the Gemara, Ruka Midrasim. They're compared by the spit and whatever they trample on. That's good if you learn that's tame. So then it is a chiddush that not only is a regular Eved bought from a guy that had the mila, not the tvila, the spit is tame, but also b'nei shvachos that grew up in a Jewish house, as long as they didn't go to the mikveh, then their spit is tame. Elaman de tar, ma'ikl, but if the one that says that it's tar, so basically they're one of the same. And therefore, there is no difference between a b'nei shvachos and a b'nei and someone in a regular evet that you buy from a goy. So by both, the halacha should be that right away, if they would have the tvila and the mila, then they could right away touch wine. That would be against Shmuel. So the Gemara is going to say, Hakamashma, Shmuel's telling you that the Brisa teaches you something else. Avodim dimya the b'nei shvachos. The slaves are different, similar to b'nei shvachos. Ma b'nei shvachos, just like if you buy a b'nei shvachos, gedolim hu da oisin yayin nesach, ketanim ein oisin yayin nesach. That's the Brisa teaching you that a cotton from a b'nei shvachos that you buy from a Jew does not make yayin nesach. Af avodim, so also a regular slave that you buy from a guy, if it's an adult, it would make yayin esech. Ketanim ain't oisin yayin esech. If it's a cotton, it would not make yayin esech. Apuka with the Rav, the Amar Rav. Shmuel will disagree with Rav in understanding this brisa, because the brisa is saying the Amar Rav tinik ben yomer oisin yayin esech kamash malam dolai. The brisa would disagree with Rav that it holds tinik ben yomer could make my yayin esech. So bottom line, we have the whole block is just two statements. One statement from Rav is that if a baby goy touches yayin nesach, it touches yayin, it becomes yayin nesach. You can't drink it, but you're allowed to benefit from it. Remember that you can't drink it, but you're allowed to benefit. So a baby goy touches wine, it becomes also to drink. That's the opinion of Rav, and Rav worked out a brisa to agree with him. The only time that Rav would say a baby touching wine would not make it yayin nesach if the baby came from a Jewish family and it just had a bris milah but never went to the mikvah. So then Rav would say that cotton, if he touches wine, would not make it yayin nesach. Fine. Shmuel holds another idea. Shmuel holds if you buy a goy, an Eved guy, so you're forcing the conversion onto him, right? You're forcing in the conversion. He was an Eved of a guy, now you're forcing a conversion. So even if you give him a bris milah and tefillah, if he would touch the wine, he would make it yayin nesach. You have to wait 12 months. And Shmuel works this brisa according to his opinion. And what Shmuel further says that there's an exception. The exception is if you buy the Eved off a Jew, right? If you buy the Eved off a Jew, then if he would have a Mila and a Tvila, then he could touch wine right away. Because since the Eved was like raised by a Jew, so to speak, so he's not so connected to Avodah Zarah. So you don't have to wait the 12 months. One more story and then we'll end. Hahu Uvda, there was this story. The Hava Mechoisa, there was in the city of Mechoisa. Also, Yisrael. A guy walked into a Jewish wine store. Amalahu, he asked the store owner, Islu Chamal Zabunu, do you have wine to sell me? Amrulay, Loy, I have no wine to sell you. There was this wine in a pitcher. right on, let's say by the counter. So so the guy put his hand into the wine and stirred the wine. So now he touched the wine, right? And he stirred it. So and he with the intention of touching it. So it should be aser bahana. Amalahu haylaf chamru. Are you telling me this is not wine? It feels like wine. The store owner took it away from the guy, and in such anger, saying that you can't take this wine, Shadia Ladana, and he poured all the wine that was in the pitcher into a barrel. The question is now that he mixed the barrel with the wine that was in the pitcher that the guy touched, does the barrel become zasa? So Shari Rava Labzbuna Goyim. Rava says it's permitted to sell to Goyim. Rava said you can't drink the wine from the barrel, but you could sell it to Goyim. If the al Rav Huna Rav Huna Rav Nachman. But Rav Huna, son of Chinana, and Rav Huna, son of Rav Nachman, argued, and they felt that it's Asr Bahana. Nafki Shipuri de Rava Vishari. So the sound of trumpets came out of Rava's court and permitted the wine. The Nafki Shipuri de Rav Huna Bachini, Rav Huna Rav Nachman, the Asri. They Asr. So you had two different kosher certifications. One said Rava's certification was the wine in the barrel was kosher, and Rav Huna's certification was that it was Asr. So let's just finish the story. So Ikle Rav Huna Breder Rav Nachman Rav Mechuzna. Rav Huna came to visit Mechuzna, the place where Rava was. So Rava didn't want to enter into a conversation with him. Apparently, Rava retracted his paskening because Rava said you could actually drink the wine, and Rava actually retracted and said that it's asabana. Amalei Rava la Rav Yaakov Shamai. Rav Yava said to Rav Yaakov his shamish, troik gale the leinese anasha did nitrate. Lock the doors, so nobody should come and enter me. But Al Gabe, Rav Huna entered him because he was afraid that Rav Huna was going to come to discuss this matter with him, and he didn't want to enter into a conversation. Amalei, so Rav Huna says, Ki hai gavnamai, what do you really paskin? Amalei, Rava said, Asa afila. This case, the whole barrel's asa bana. So wait a second. But the Rav Huna said, but you said that the stirring of the guy's hand in the wine will not make it yayin esach. So it wouldn't make it ayin nesach. So no, Ema Damre, no. Rava said, that's not what I said. I said the barrel is mutter to sell, but the wine from the pitcher that was poured into the barrel, you have to, put it, sell it for free. Basically, you take the money for the barrel and just take off a piece that represented the wine from the pitcher and throw it into the salt sea. So basically, Rava is retracting of his psak, which he said before that it was permitted to drink. And now Rava is saying, wait, it was permitted to sell to goyim, and the wine that's in the pitcher, that was asabana. So you'll see more about this story tomorrow. Okay.
Thank you.